What are the Denver Broncos' keys to victory this Sunday in a Week 4 showdown at Soldier Field with the Chicago Bears? We'll take a look at the injury report, some updates, some things to monitor, but also our keys to victory. You're going to get all that on this morning's brand new episode of Good Morning Broncos. What's up, Broncos country? Welcome into a brand new episode of GMB, your daily bite-sized cup of coffee and Broncos conversation here at Mile High Sports. Make sure you stay tuned here. What we got going on, we just hit over 3K subscribers here on the YouTube page. So thank you so much if you're a Colorado sports fan for tuning into this channel. Not only do you get daily Broncos content and coverage in season, you have some other professional sports seasons coming up with the Colorado Avalanche with Eric Dean. He's going to host. He's got some great interviews with some Avs players coming up here on the page. Make sure you check out those interviews. We also have Ryan Blackburn, host of the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. He's our Denver Nuggets beat reporter with the defending NBA champions set to start off their season with the banner ceremony against the Los Angeles Lakers. Make sure you subscribe here so you get all of Ryan's pick and roll coverage that you get here. Mile High Sports, every team, every day. I'm Cody Roark. I'm a Broncos reporter here. I cover the team in person every single day in the Valley, go to the games, and you get all your recap and coverage here weekdays at 9 o'clock a.m. So make sure, hey, if you're down on a cup of coffee right now, pour yourself a cup, pull a seat up, and let's talk about what's going on with this Broncos team, keys to victory, things we need to pay attention to for their game this upcoming week here against the Chicago Bears. Now, everything that we're talking about here, Denver's going to have one final practice here today at the Centura Health Training Center. And I think one of the things we have to keep an eye on here is what is the injury status going to be on Josey Jewell, right? So if we take a look at the injury report from yesterday in Dove Valley, same usual suspects from this week that have not been participating here. You got three guys there. Josey Jewell did not participate on Wednesday. He did not participate in Thursday's practice either, as he's dealing with a groin injury, even though it's being listed on the report as a hip injury. He has been working on the side field so far this week here, and we'll see, okay, maybe a jump, maybe a promising thing could be, okay, hey, does Josey here today on Friday, does he go from a DNP from 2 days in a row? Does he upgrade to at least limited, right? Something that we're going to monitor here. We looked at the same thing with Justin Simmons last week, DNP, and we were coming into Friday thinking, okay, is he going to go from DNP to limited? Obviously, he was a DNP on Friday, and then that led to him not playing last Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. So we'll see if that's the same course of action here for Josey Jewell as he's dealing with that groin injury he sustained in that first quarter against the Miami Dolphins in a game that I think everybody in Broncos country would like to forget here. But I think another thing here we have to look at with Josey, right? He's obviously a very important part of the Broncos defense, what they want to accomplish. I mean, his football IQ is unbelievable. And if you ever had a chance to get to talk with him and you ever get the opportunity down the road, if any of you do, he's very smart when it comes to coverage. I mean, this is a guy I feel like maybe when he's done playing, if he wanted to coach and coordinate a defense, I think he could. He's got a very vast knowledge of how defensive schemes work and how to counter different offensive looks there. So obviously, if he's not able to play this week against the Chicago Bears, it's a big blow for Denver not having one of their key starters in the lineup. But if he does miss Sunday's game, this is the opportunity for the third-round rookie linebacker out of Arkansas, Drew Sanders, to make his first ever start in the NFL. And look, he got some action last week against the Dolphins. It was not the prettiest game for the Broncos rookie. There was a lot of motion, a lot of misdirection from that Dolphins offense. And, you know, that gets a young guy in his head thinking a little bit. But he's been preparing this week as if he's going to be the starter. And more than likely, if Jewell does not play, we'll likely see Alex Singleton slide over to the Mike linebacker spot. Drew Sanders will likely play the Will backer spot. And, hey, this might be the perfect opportunity. I was sitting in the Broncos media room here today. We were talking with Troy Rank, and we were even saying, like, this is the perfect game against the Chicago Bears offense that is really struggling to move the ball, to even put up points. This might be a great opportunity to use Drew Sanders as a potential spy against Justin Fields. But that means, okay, if you're going to spy him, your outside contained from your outside linebackers has to be on point. It wasn't against the Dolphins. I think a lot of that was based on how they played their scheme offensively, and that made it challenging for Denver. But the Bears offense has really, really struggled to just be consistent. Justin Fields, he's been sacked 13 total times so far through 13 games of play. They're one of the bottom-ranked offenses in terms of red zone points scored. I mean, they're at 15. I think it's 15.7 points per game here. Broncos fans know what that's like. From watching last year's offense here in Denver, it was kind of very similar in that regard. But aside from that, yes, that could be the expectation here if Drew Sanders is going to be the starter there. Will linebacker, could be a spy here or there. But Denver more than likely will get Justin Simmons back this week here. Now, he's been a limited participant all throughout this week. I think today's practice will be very interesting. I mean, he's on pace to play. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have met with us a little bit early on in the week at the podium. But for him, he's been dealing with that hip, a groin stuff that dates all the way back to training camp, and they just need him to be 100%. So if he goes from limited yesterday and Wednesday to a full participant during today's practice, it's a great sign that he's going to play, but I think he's going to play anyways. That's the overall vibe that we got. Obviously, a big boost to get back on the back end of that secondary. Look, when you look at the Chicago Bears and the offense, the guys that they have, tight end, they got Cole Kmet, who's their second leading receiver. DJ Moore is their number one receiver. More than likely, we'll see Patrick Surtain maybe following him around a little bit. But you can't forget about Chase Claypool. He's had some big games historically against the Denver Broncos in years past as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's just one of those games where you have to be very careful with how you play this defensively. And there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of heat here on Vance Joseph. We'll talk about him a little bit later on once we get to our keys to victory here for Denver. But going through our injury report here, once again, Frank Clark, DNP. Now, he told us, he met with us on Thursday inside the locker room, and he told us that I think it was after that Raiders game, that first practice, I think he tore his adductor or his groin. It was like a grade 3 tear, something that he said along those lines there. That's held him out of action here. He's been working on the side field, doing a lot of stretching, doing a lot of the proper recovery stuff that Bo Lowry's got those guys doing over there. And I think that's obviously going well for them in terms of the recovery aspect of it. But he said he more than likely will not play this week against these Chicago Bears, but he is looking maybe to make a return potentially next week against the New York Jets. So the Broncos could be getting him back from the injury. Denver could also be getting back Baron Browning, depending on if the Broncos, after this week, if they activate him off the PUP list, which means that they open up a 21-day window, and he has within that 21 days to return to the active roster. Denver could be getting some good reinforcements, some good depth on the defensive line, maybe even adding some guys that could bump down even to defensive end in situations like Frank Clark. He could obviously do that as well. So something to keep an eye on here if you are a Broncos fan about some things coming down the pipe here for this team. Mike Purcell, though, dealt with a rib injury all week long. He suffered that in the Miami loss last Sunday. DNP on Wednesday and Thursday. And if he does not participate in Friday's practice, it's safe to make the assumption here, as we've done with every player who's been a DNP all week, they may or may not play. Like if it's a DNP for 3 straight days, more than likely he'll be ruled out in Sunday's game. So that means on the defensive line, that means guys like PJ Mustipher, Tyler Lancaster, those guys are going to be expected to step up and maybe play a little bit more of a pivotal role. Even Elijah Garcia, who made the active roster here for his impressive play during the preseason. And so Denver's just going to have to get more contribution, in my opinion, on the defensive line if they're going to find a way to have success this week against a team that is also looking to get their first win. And I think when you look at a matchup between 2 0-3 teams, who's more desperate, who's more dangerous at that point? Denver, coming off the defensive performance that they did, a lot of people are going to be overlooking them, and rightfully so. But I think you have a really good opportunity here to get right, and so much is going to be contingent upon what Denver does and their keys to victory here. And that's something we're actually going to talk about here on today's episode of Good Morning Broncos. But Broncos country, let me tell you about our sponsor of today's episode of the show. It's our friends over there at Superbook Sports. Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door, just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure that you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus bet of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code Mile High. So bet with the best and use promo code Mile High this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Broncos country, as we continue on this Friday installment of Good Morning Broncos here on Mile High Sports, just once again, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who helped us reach 3,000 subscribers here on the Mile High Sports YouTube page. Please do us a favor. If you've not done so already, hey, hit that subscribe button so we can continue to grow this to more Colorado sports fans. We have you covered every team, every day. Thank you so much for your time here this morning. Hope you're enjoying a nice cup of coffee, or if you like tea, you can do that as well. But continuing on here, let's get into our keys to victory. Now we're going to highlight something on the Broncos offense. We're going to highlight something on the defense, and maybe even throw a little honorable mention there to the special team side of the ball here. But for the Denver Broncos offense, this has got to be a paramount portion of maybe what they tried to do against the Chicago Bears. Look, this is a Bears defense that is struggling this season. But if Denver, for some reason, wins the coin toss, I'm begging, don't defer to the second half. It hasn't been good to you. Change it up a little bit. Receive the ball to open up the game. and see what you can do there by going out there and getting Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine involved in the rushing attack. The run game has to become an important element for Denver. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, there's been times, like I think against the Raiders, Denver, and the 6 possessions they had, I thought they ran the ball solid between those two guys there, but 6 possessions, not normal in a typical NFL game. And then you go to the Commanders game week 2, Denver's run game was rolling on the inside. They had a 21-3 lead by airing it out, but then they took their foot off the gas and they stopped running the football, where ideally you want to run the clock out. Week 3, guess what? Well, they got off to a nice start running the football with Javonte, some big impressive plays. I had a chance on Thursday to ask Broncos offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, his thoughts on that and maybe how they can just find consistency there, because it really hasn't been talked about enough, Denver's run game. And unfortunately, when you look at the scores, you look at a box score, statistical rankings, it's not going to tell you the full story here. But if you watch the tape, you see that the run game is working. But when you're down by 3 scores, you have to abandon the run game. And Joe Lombardi simply told me that for the Broncos, he's been very impressed to see how Javonte has run the ball. Not only that, just catching the ball in the backfield. Same thing with Samaje, and that he's hopeful that they can find a way to just consistently get the run game going, and more so be able to manage that and maintain that through late in a game. That's something they haven't been able to do just yet. Can they do that this weekend against the Chicago Bears? That is a huge key to victory here for Denver. And obviously, I think for Russell Wilson, look, you look at this secondary here for the Chicago Bears. They are banged up. They have a multitude of guys who are injured. Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, to be 2 guys specifically that are top players on that defense that may be in danger of missing Sunday's game. You know what that means? Give Marvin Mims the ball more. We talked about it all week. Marvin Mims deserves more than 15 snaps. I think that Sean Payton this week, you look at Joe Lombardi, they've kind of hinted that, we've been able to see what he's able to do. We want to see a little bit more of that. That's on them. They got to put him in that position. And so this week against a secondary that's going to be missing some of their guys more than likely, air that bad boy out downfield there to Marvin Mims. Or if Chicago adjusts their defensive scheme, say, hey, this is their most explosive player, number 19, we have to adjust. Well, you know what it does? That plays right into the hands of Cortland Sutton, what he does well in the short to intermediate game, maybe even a 50-50 jump ball situation. We got to see him get back to that. Got to see Denver put him in some of those situations there. But I think it also placates to what Jerry Jeudy does so well as a guy who moves all over the formation. We even saw him against the Dolphins line up in the backfield on a couple of times. But the idea with that is to just isolate matchups on the middle of the field. And Jerry, nobody can cover him in space one-on-one. So there's an opportunity there for if Denver comes out with a balanced focus, it has the run game going, gosh, you can take advantage in the passing game as well. In Chicago right now, they're allowing a lot of yards through the air to opposing quarterbacks. So can Russell Wilson and the offense take advantage of that? Now, let's shift to our second key to victory here for the Broncos defense. Now, folks, I get it. Last week's performance was rough, and the Broncos defense, they have so much to prove, I think, in the eyes of the fan base. But more importantly, I just tell you all throughout this week, these guys know this is not who they are. They said this is not the standard that we have set for ourselves in that defensive room. They are embarrassed about last week. They're pissed about last week, and they want to get it right this week against the Chicago Bears. But it's not just about getting it right against Chicago, right? Chicago's the next opponent in front of you, but Denver has to start getting to the building blocks of being more consistent with their tackling, angles, pursuit, not having so much in terms of coverage laps. But Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph met with us on Thursday following practice, and one of the things he was asked about as the defense is, how do you bounce back? And he said, as a coach, it's on him to have his guys prepared. And that simply didn't happen on Sunday. But he also acknowledged that he says, I've got to fix it. I've got to fix it. And I've got to fix it quickly. And if you don't, look, I think there's some pressure there. Sean Payton, as we know, slow to hire, quick to fire. There is a little bit of pressure looming there for Vance Joseph to get things right, because Denver's defense right now in scoring in terms of yards allowed per game, they're the 32nd ranked defense. And one thing that you can do, I think, this week is, we talked about Drew Sanders earlier, maybe playing a spiral. Edge contain is going to be important. Defensive push from the interior from guys like DJ Jones, Zach Allen, Jonathan Harris, or if anybody else steps in, if Mike Purcell plays, and obviously him, but anybody on the interior defensive line needs to start creating some upfield penetration to be able to help those outside linebackers get some one-on-one matchups. Now, the good news for Denver here, Justin Fields does not get the ball out of his hands as quick as Tua Tagovailoa. You look at advanced next-gen statistics from the NFL, Tua is getting the ball out of his hands faster than anybody in the NFL this season, which is a testament to that offense, what they've done to help him reduce the amount of contact he's going to take on shots, and he's super effective. It worked, but this is not how Justin Fields is. Justin Fields has been criticized this year for holding on to the football way too long. So there will be opportunities for Denver's pass rushers, their edge rushers on the outside to be able to get to Justin Fields there, but you can't break contain. We know how explosive of an athlete that Justin Fields is. He can dip up underneath the formation. He can get to the outside, and we can see him take off. I mean, we've seen it before in the NFL against some really good defenses. I think he had a big game last year, if I'm not mistaken, with his legs against the Philadelphia Eagles. He is an explosive athlete. He's not consistent as a passer, but you can't overlook that. He's got DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Chase Claypool. He's even got Khalil Herbert coming out of the backfield. He is a guy who, if he somehow just clicks, or the play calling is better, the design, the schemes, the route concepts, which have been poor around him, if those things can suddenly take a turn this week, he's going to have an opportunity to maybe bounce back here and give Chicago some light, even though they're sitting at an 0-3 record, just like the Denver Broncos. So you have to make Justin Fields' life a little bit miserable. You have to be able to tackle. And as cliche as it sounds, Denver had 24 missed tackles last week. You can't do that and expect to win here in the NFL, especially on the road where you are already at a disadvantage there, even though the Denver is favorites in this game on the road. Can never overlook a team that is, I think, backed up into a corner. Right now, Chicago is in the same position that Denver is. And I think these things all factor into the equation here. But that is our keys to victory here. And we'll give a little bit of an honorable mention. Obviously, be great in the kicking game, right? Obviously, the punting game, you don't want to punt too many times. But if you do have to punt, make sure they're good punts. Make sure your coverage is good. Denver's special teams this year, really outside the game where Will Lutz missed the extra point in the field goal, they've been pretty dang good. They've been a very good unit in terms of their kick coverage. I think their return coverage, being able to set up things for Marvin Mims in the punt return, kick return game have been spectacular. So you know what? Let's see another big return this week here as well. Those will round out your keys to victory here on this morning's episode of Good Morning Broncos. Broncos country, I appreciate you so much for rocking with us. And once again, just do us a favor. If you've not done so already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on Colorado pro sports coverage. You get all that here on Mile High Sports, every team, every day. You want to check out all of our written work as well. I write every single day, milehighsports.com.